Welcome to Enough Talk with Alex Balekian, where we get real about what's happening in California and beyond. It's unfiltered, it's unfettered, it's unapologetic, and it's about time someone said it. I'm here today with our guest, Siaka Massaquoi. Hello, welcome.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Can I give you a shout out for saying my last name correctly? My wife will be extremely happy. Thank you. Appreciate you.
For
Alex.
anybody who's taken French, it's said how it's spelled.
Yeah, there you go. Massa
Yes.
what?
So I'm just going to start it off.
Yeah.
What exactly have you had enough of?
Honestly, the truth be told is the hypersexualization of the children out here. You know, that's probably the first thing, but because I know everything comes from that. And if you can try to destroy a young child, you can do anything moving forward. And these parents, you're separating the parents from being parents. You're throwing the family dynamic out the window, which is, I believe, is the foundation of what makes America strong, is strong family. And so the state here in California, in multiple bills, are saying, we don't care about your family right. You know, your right as a parent. And they're putting these kids in danger. Yeah, we can start and talk about everything else. It's just the amount of children that have been put in danger here in California, let alone now will be taken off this earth before they have a chance to come out with Prop 1. This attack on children, man, like this messes with me. And I didn't think you were gonna jump into it like that. But this is like, that's, you know, I'm about to have a child. You know, and the things, it just, you know, I've been in the industry, the Hollywood industry here. I've made my decisions as an adult to go into places that were dark. And now to see some of these dark things try to be normalized, but for minds that don't understand what's going on, only by the grace of God I was able to get out of those. If you don't even understand that's what's happening at such a young age, how much destruction are you going to do to yourself before you even have a chance to know who you are? You know, that's, yeah. Thanks a lot, Alex. You're right, unfiltered.
I feel like I'm Barbara Walters because my mother would say when somebody was being interviewed, oh, if this was Barbara Walters, she would have had them crying within 10 minutes. So I can say that I did better than Barbara Walters.
Wow. I did not. I thought we were going to talk about, I guess policy, but more of just, wow.
Well,
but that's number one, man. That's number one. We shouldn't be in this fight. Or this fight shouldn't be happening, I should say.
So you touched on Hollywood, so why don't I first ask you to give us your origin story? Give us the Siaka Massaquoi origin story and what made you who you are today.
Well, first and foremost, my mom, you know, she single mom, came here from Liberia. She got her master's in nursing and then raised my brother and I in Chicago, suburb outside of Chicago. I was on one side, I was the cliche of the left, if you will, and I'll use those monikers so it could just clear to people when we're talking. You know, I was liberal and grew up super liberal, single mom, single black mom, 2 boys. She did her thing, did amazingly. Was able to buy a house in a better neighborhood so we could grow up, and with a safe community, which was Evanston, Illinois. Yeah, I marched in the anti-violence march. Was an MC there in high school. I was just this memory came to me a couple days ago. I even stood there at a school board meeting for teenage rights to sex education. Looking back at it now, I'm just like, wow, I was really in it. I got a scholarship to play football at University of Iowa. I was the athlete of school, so I got all that stuff. Then you get away from home and got caught up in the stuff that can happen when you're away from home. Girls, access, alcohol. Those were my big vices. So much so that I chose alcohol over football, over finishing school, over many relationships. And then one thing I did find in college that was amazing was theater. I got involved in theater, and it was the first time I enjoyed the process just as much as the final result. Whereas in everything else, I was like, I hate running, but yet I was a running back. I'm like, I hate wrestling. I hate training for wrestling, but I love the competition of the moment. But acting was the first time where I enjoyed building the character, trying to figure out what they want me to present, and then being able to can I pull that off for you? Can I move you emotionally based on what's been written here and then what I've developed in there? So I love that. Came out here in '04, chasing a dream, and had a bunch of different ups and downs and figuring out real life. One of the best thing I figured out was, oh, if I don't work, I won't eat. Uh-oh. So where life wasn't like that, especially when, as a college football athlete, it's here you go. Here's your 3 meals a day. This is where you go for study hall. Here's your tutors if you need it. Here's your access. And then you don't have that anymore in the real world. Good luck. So there was a stunting of growth that I know I had when it comes down to dealing with a relationship, working, any of that stuff. Then I got involved in the acting game, but I was bartending, so I was in that world a lot. Got really caught up in that world because I thought if I move up as a bartender, I can move up as an actor because that's what I saw, right? Like actors and bartenders were synonymous. So then we move forward. About the first time I attempted to stop drinking, because this was what was really holding me back in moving forward in life, was 2013, and I was staying in this house. I was staying in this house that I just booked a Super Bowl commercial earlier that year, which kept me in the city. I was going to move back to Chicago. Booked a Super Bowl commercial, stayed, but I moved into what is literally known as a crack house. Like, no joke. There was a what was it? A couple in the front who were crackheads and a couple in the back and who were meth heads, and that's the space I was in.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was a slumlord that owned this big house that would have like one room where a lot of people who would just move in, a lot of young girls that would come in, foreigners. He'd stack them up in one room, so it would be some girls from like Japan, Russia. So that one girl actually came from my rival high school, and they had just moved. So all these 20-somethings are over here. These meth addicts and crack addicts in the first floor. But I thought I was cool because I had the big room, and I was by myself. I was like, I got the big room, so I'm not like them, right? A couple years passed, and it really hit the fan when I came home drunk, and I stole one of the meth heads' ramen noodles off his stove because I was hungry at the time. And he came in the room and he's yelling at me in the kitchen, and I'm yelling back because how dare you yell at me? Not. Yeah, you're right. I stole your stuff. I'm a thief, right? How dare you? I go to bed. Next morning, I wake up, and the guy who was living in the basement, who's obese and depressed all day, he pulls me aside. He goes, hey, we discussed it, and we said, if you come back here drunk again, we're going to have the landlord kick you out. And I'm like, uh-oh. Like,
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't move here for this. If I wanted to be a degenerate drunk who was stealing everything, I would have stayed at home because at least I would have been around friends and family.
Yeah.
And so it really, that moment really hit me. I went into my room, and like a lot of people do, we want to shut off and shut away from people. And I was in there for a little bit, and I had that thought going on. And this other couple who came, they were visiting. They were from Scandinavia. I call them my elves from Lord of the Rings. Shout out to Lord of the Rings. I'm a dork too. But they were there. The guy was there. He was a really great guy. I was working with him on a motorcycle, and we sat out in the room. We're talking, and she asked the girlfriend asked. She goes, "You ever think you were an alcoholic?" And Alex, as I'm sitting here, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I mean, I've played in front of hundreds of thousands of football game, not nervous. I performed on stage live in front of tens of thousands, not nervous. Auditioned for big parts, sometimes nervous, right? But overall, not. And this was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, was just to admit that there was a problem. And it felt like this ball came out of my throat and a weight was lifted instantaneously. Like I felt like I could start to breathe and, oh, okay, whoa, like just came up, but I didn't know I was under. That's what's so weird about this stuff and the disease of alcoholism. You don't know. You know something's wrong, but you don't know how deeply under you are. So I started going to program with his help, with one of my friends' help. Life's turning around. I'm out of that place in 6-7 months. I'm out. Right. I moved to the valley in a beautiful environment. I met this girl. I had money in my pocket. I bought my first car in cash. Usually it was like getting it from my family, but now everything's going good. And the disease of alcoholism, like disease of any type of ism, is it likes to trap you to believe that you've gotten past it. So I was in a place where I was like, well, I'm like, yeah, I got it. I never said I wouldn't ever drink again. I just, today I can't. And so I used that to get me through about a year and a half. When I was in this position, meet this girl who I'm desperate, like most people, desperate for love, like especially artists, you know, we're always wearing it on our sleeves. And I at this park with this girl, and beautiful guys randomly playing acoustic guitar over on the left. You know, it's perfect. I got wine and cheese. I got this bottle of wine that she wanted from our first date.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is an important moment. I'll drink with you. I'll never forget the look she gave me. Like, you sure? I was like, yeah, we got this. A week later, we were broken up. I was drinking a half a bottle of whiskey to go to sleep every night. And that lasted for 5 months, thank God. Some great people who I actually now could hear when they were warning me, where before it was like, you don't get it, it was bad luck, wait till I make it, then you all not see. Whereas this time it was just true. And after 5 months, I couldn't do it anymore. And I went from staying in a nice apartment in the valley, and this is not about stuff, but it's just where it can take you into darkness, to sleeping on a friend's air mattress that deflated every morning in the sunroom. So literally waking up on the floor every morning, until I went back into the room of March 15th, 2016. And that's when everything changed. You know, my career started becoming better. I started, a year later, I'm flying to West Africa, Liberia, where my family's from, to shoot the first major movie there.
Wow.
Playing an indigenous person, which possibly could have been my ancestor. I'm booking television, film, doing plays, all at the same time. Like the dream that I always wanted to, when I decided to be an actor, was to be a working actor. You know, it wasn't necessarily to be a star. It was to be someone who, I was doing different TV shows. I was doing plays. I wanted to have commercials running so that I could sustain my life, just to be an artist like that, right? And I hit that point, and this was happening. I'm like, wow, it was really beautiful. Even one year, I remember 2018, I go, I want to do a musical this year. I did a musical at the Fringe Fest. Just somebody is like, hey, do you want to do this? I'm just like, what's happening? I'm getting everything in a sense that I've always wanted. And then, like everything, the shutdown happened in 2020.
Yeah.
It was March 15th. Actually, we shut down. I remember, because that was my sobriety birthday, which was when we were supposed to open the play that I was doing. And I started to do this play so I could fall back in love with the process, because I had fallen out of love with the process. And it shut down then, and everything just started, as we saw, everything started moving forward. I'm looking around, 2 weeks to slow it down. I never thought it was going to be 2 weeks. Like many of us didn't think it was going to be 2 weeks. Then you have things like the summer of love is really the summer of love. I'm put that in quotes, guys, because that really turned me from being a closeted conservative, Republican Trump supporter, to the hell with what they say, because they're sponsoring terror and murder. And that summer, in Chicago alone, we had 250 deaths. 75% were black. You didn't hear a word from BLM about those deaths. No. One specific was a 6-month-old was shot in a stroller midday, right around the corner from the apartment my mom lived. At the time, my mom's 73 years old, by herself. If she was out, that's the middle of the day. And then my industry, your John Legends and many others, were putting together bail fund to get these people who were arrested for the rioting back out. So they were then paying. So my industry, that I'm too afraid to speak like what I see is truly happening, that's who I'm afraid of. These people who are now openly sponsoring this death and destruction. I just really couldn't do it anymore. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I just knew I couldn't be quiet anymore. We were going to the Beverly Hills rallies since June at this point still too. So I was quietly going there.
To the Trump rally.
To the Trump rallies in Beverly Hills, which was like, it was just, after we got through those first couple months of Antifa trying to mess with us, it became a weekend party where people were coming together to see each other. These are your friends every week. Hey, what's going on? What's up? We're dancing. We're singing. There's some prayer going on. We do a march. We come back. And we hang out for another few hours, and then we go home. and they're dancing, and like dancing was something that was happening very consistently that I want people to really understand that was happening over and over at these Trump rallies. Like people were dancing.
It's like a 1980s film where you actually just people
People just
randomly
start
go into break dance.
And you're looking around, and that was the weekend before before the election. I remember on that Saturday, we're out there, and I'm walking around. At this point, coming from that first rally in June, where it was maybe 100 people, maybe I'm talking about being nice, saying 100 people, to 10,000. A plane in the air, with a banner saying Vietnamese for Trump, a live band, Dennis Prager on one side dancing with Israelis, but he can't dance because he's a little clumsy. But it was like, I'm looking at it like, look at Dennis getting at it.
I couldn't even imagine that in my wildest dreams, seeing Dennis Prager dancing.
He was, let me just say this. Do you ever see when, you ever been on the ocean on your surfboard or just on a buoy, and it just like, you're going like this and it's taking you? It looked more like that. No offense to Dennis at all. He's not really a dancer, but it was just this joy. We see like people with like Iranian flags next to people with Jewish flags, and they're just loved because of what America represents. We're seeing the homies with the buttons up here, the cholos, next to the Comptonites, next to somebody from Hollywood, the little debutantes from there, to the West Hollywood cats walking over because they've walked away, right? We're seeing everything. And I'm like looking around just going, wow, this is America, man. It really moved me. We had going back to dancing, on the streets of Santa Monica, we had different groups who had speakers and circles, and they were just dancing. That was that Saturday before. And then we know what kind of happened with that. But all that just told me this is the fight to be in. Something else is coming. We need to stand up here and now. Then, the election happened. I had been to D.C. a few times before, but I went to D.C. on January 6th. What I saw and experienced, of course, wasn't anything like what they said on MSNBC. I recorded my whole experience. I remember that day, right, putting a live out going, they're going to lie to you and say, is this, that, and the other, but it's not. It was peaceful. People were out here. People were walking away when I was walking towards going, oh, yeah, people are still hanging out. We did the national anthem, ran into friends. And then in that June 10th, they raided my house. They came in and raided my house.
They being?
The FBI. The FBI came and raided my home. And at this point, I'm a talker. I'm out at rallies and events doing speeches, speeches. And this is what they wrote in articles from the Daily Mail to LA Times, everything about me being raided by the FBI, that he encourages people to run for local office.
And that is your
that is my
treason.
thing. This is why he needs to be put on the radar.
So because you tell people to exercise their civic duty and run for office, and for that reason you're being treasonous.
I'm being treasonous right now.
Okay.
And I'm reading this in the article and going, wow, this is what it is. This is why you're going to plaster it out there to ruin my reputation. Because it wasn't about what was in the article. It's about Netflix actor raided, Hollywood actor raided. That's all they wanted to say. And even the FBI agent, they go, this is not an arrest warrant, and you're not being charged with anything, which I still to this day haven't. They came in.
But they confiscated your materials.
They confiscated my phone, my laptop, my flash drives, my journals that had nothing to do with anything in the last few years.
Did you get any of them back?
I still to this day haven't received anything. So at this point, they came in guns drawn. The ARs they want to ban, that's what they came in with. Pointed it at me, my roommates, my godsons, 3 and 6 at the time, and stole my stuff. And then as we tried to sue them over these last few years, the Ninth Circuit Court, after saying that I could have a chance, finally, after 2 years to go speak about why they wronged me, they said, no. After a week before, they're like, no, you don't need to speak anymore. And we'll make our own decisions, which, of course, they decided against me because, what are you going to do? I'm like, I brought the case against the government. I brought it. They weren't saying I was the one and charging me, which, again, still have not been charged or arrested for anything because I didn't do anything. And the agent himself said when he was in there, he goes, no, we know you're not violent. That's why this is not one of those things. I told the field officer it's not one of those things, the head of the office, because, we see you in there. You don't do anything violent. I go, yeah, no one has a picture of me wearing any type of body protection. I'm wearing T-shirts and jeans and a hat telling people to run for local office, man. That's why you're in my house like this? That's why I will open my door and 2 guys point guns in my face? Like, I remember saying, this isn't America. And when that pissed me off so much, I was like, well, I got to do more. How can I tell people to run if I'm not going to be willing to run, right? So that's when I threw my name in a hat in 2022 to go, I'm going to run for assembly. At the very least, if I get in, I can switch the laws. At the very least, I can message, because I think that's important. We miss that, and we've missed that here in California, is that the other side hasn't been messaging, because it's not the race. You won't win because LA's too blue to try, or not even San Diego, San Francisco's too blue. No. The other side messages everywhere. Is why Texas is in play for them. Is why, Arizona flipped. Is why Nevada's in play. Is because it's not about the win. It's about the messaging. It's about the investment. They invest so consistently that how many times did Beto lose?
How many times did what?
The Beto O'Rourke lost? Yeah, but this message got in there, and it got millions of dollars to message,
So since you're talking about messaging, I want to go right into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
I promised you at the get-go that this was not going to be a fluff piece. This was not going to be softball.
Yeah.
So as far as messaging goes, and as far as getting your message out there and uniting, my campaign, I'm going to call him my propaganda manager. That's the minister of propaganda, whatever I think the name is. James, he is appalled at how amateur, lacking in vision, lacking in consistency, brand, almost like a 90s MySpace page.
Yeah.
The Republican message is. Yeah. And I'm going to allow you to answer that before I then expound on what I think the problem is. So why don't you speak to that? First of all, let our audience know what you do with the Republican Party.
So, after I didn't win the election, it allowed me to become an ex officio, which puts me a part of the county party. And I was asked to run for vice chair and ended up winning vice chair for the LA County Party, and which is the largest county party in the country. It's kind of wild that now I was up there. And I believed I was elected because a few different reasons, that not only for the grassroots, because that's where I started, that's the legitimacy. And then for the establishment, it's new, right? So you can be part of beginning the messaging part for what we talk about.
Yeah.
That's been one of my biggest focus as we've joining the board, is that's what's important. I 100% agree with you. I believe I used to be on the other side laughing at the Republican Party because we're dancing and we're winning and we're laughing, we're having a good time. You guys will continue to lose because you don't know how to speak to young people.
Right.
Period. And now as I'm here, I see a disconnect, because I think a part of it is the nature of the party. And it's the nature of the party because how many things do you see the party lead from? A lot of times we're responding to.
Okay.
So one of the things I always like to say is show them who we are instead of tell them what we don't like.
So then who is the Republican Party? Who is the core of the Republican Party? And what does the Republican Party stand for?
Well, I think it stands for individualism first, the preeminence of the individual. And that's what I saw over there in Beverly Hills when you saw all those different types basically saying, leave me alone, get out of my life. That's the Republican Party. And we never get a chance to show that over and over. And a lot of times that I've seen, there's some old guard that maybe don't have an understanding to move to the other space, because if you don't have that understanding and it's not about devaluing what you are. It's like, look, for example, I wanted to put together a show and, for entertainment, and some people wanted to get Clint Eastwood. And I go, I love Clint, but he's not in the fight. He's not. He was. He's not. People like from the Babylon Bee, they're in the fight. Daily Wire, they're in the fight. That's who I can contact. But then it's a lack of understanding to go, yeah, that's the direction we should go. And I'm like, you're missing out on so many people, so many groups they're rising up, and what they need is the validation and the legitimacy that the party does offer. Like it or not, there's validation in the party going, that's our person, or we're backing this. They're missing that out for kind of, and I think it was, again, because of nature, our responding, not looking forward to go, okay, what can we grab to connect with where people are? That's the part that I feel like gets missed so much. And then it's, for me, I'm like, well, you got to continue to show them, right? Because until people have to look over on, no matter what group or side you're on, if you don't make the pop yourself, you can't really rely on people to see your vision. You have to create it and put it out there. So we're in this kind of mixed bag of, I think being in my position, I get a good chance now to really show them what we can do, but I got to do it myself to a certain extent.
Yeah.
With help over here. I can't wait for the process to work, because I don't know if the process completely understands how to move in this direction, because it hasn't had to.
I'm biting my tongue because I want to let you finish what you're going to say, because I'm going to jump into it. What I've noticed is the Republican Party has been saddled with the reputation of a bunch of old white racist men who hate gays and immigrants and want to control women's bodies.
yeah.
Let me just say it.
Yeah. That would be. Yeah, that's And
that is why. So
it.
when people ask, how did California get a supermajority of Democrats? Yes, there are Republicans who left, but in my opinion, that blame lies squarely on the shoulders of a party that allowed itself to be branded as the party of old racist white men who hate gays and immigrants and want to have control over women's bodies. Yep. So what do you say to that? What is your thought on that?
I mean, again, it's marketing, because everything that I've seen, even just how you've laid it out, that's how it's been laid out from the left. And then they market it over and over and over and over. And then the other side goes, and I've seen this in even smaller groups of how they even want to fight. Well, let's just get out the flyers that say, like, this is why we want low taxes. I'm like, okay, but every weekend, for example, you can go to a park and there'll be an event going on where there will be those different groups, if you will. There will also be a band, but they will be led by a Democratic something. So even if, because I don't believe they care about gays, immigrants, and women's bodies, they use it to win power.
Correct.
So if you don't, there's no counter to that. And the counter is the values. The counter is what we offer, which is your individualism to go live. That's what the counter is. But if no one gets a chance to see that outside of a handful of people who unfortunately happen to be more gray hairs than not, every once in a while walking around is like, you show up, well, you don't understand me and where I'm coming from. When you're showing up with a flyer and that's how you present. I'm actually going to this park over here where there's going to be some music, some food, a couple food trucks. That's what the Beverly Hills rally showed me. Now, and from a marketing standpoint, I didn't see major GOP show up there. I'm like, this is what you're missing. You have a camera running around here, a couple interviews with some mics, people on the street, and you post that on our GOP website. All of a sudden, everybody thinks the LA GOP is different than everybody else. Just that alone.
Right.
And we had 8 months to do that. So it has to be a way of, it's not going to come from, in a sense, the same old trajectory that we're looking for. It's not going to come with just the boards going, this is the direction we're doing. It's really going to come from us being the party. It's going to come from us having a show like this. We started an organization, Hollywood for Freedom. So we're doing that for people who got banished from Hollywood because of the jab. Establishing my sketch comedy group, which makes fun of What the Fact, which makes fun of the crazy stuff that we see going on here. So people see, wait a second, conservatives are different than maybe just what the party has been offering? Great. Wait, they're actually calling us out for not being active as we should be. They're actually calling us out for sitting back and watching all this craziness happen and wondering what happened. Like, you can't expect evil or the other team to care, respect, or do what you want. You have to step in there.
Right.
And it calls for Republicans, conservatives, because I don't think that's naturally the exact same, because there's Republicans who aren't conservatives, and that's, to me, that's fine, because Republican is a political party.
So let me grasp onto that. So I'm actually what you would call a gold star Republican. Since the day I was able to register to vote, I've been a Republican. I've never voted for a Democrat.
Wow.
Never.
You're more legit than me, brother. I made phone calls for Obama. That's how far out I was on the other side.
Somebody like Jordan Henry, for example, who you think is Hitler incarnate, right? That man was
he was a super liberal.
Right, he was a super liberal. So I I tell people, you could not grow up in California in the 80s as an Armenian with George Duke Major as your governor and not be a Republican.
Wow.
Because at that time, the Republican Party meant to me, and it still means to me, the party of immigrants, the party of you come here to this country, you make something of yourself, you assimilate.
Boom.
You're a hard worker. The government stays out of your life. You stay out of other people's lives.
Yes.
The foundation is in the home from which you build your family,
Exactly.
from which you build your business that you then hand down to your children.
Yes.
You are a good neighbor.
Yep. Very important.
You know, what's yours is yours, what's mine is mine, and that is how we exist. And I'm still a Republican, but I describe myself as a disenfranchised Republican for the last 20 years because my party of fiscal conservatism, lower taxes, within the last 20 years, started multiple wars, ran up the budget deficits, increased the debt limit. And this is also kind of what grinds my gears and chaps my hides, where I am running. I still don't have the backing, the endorsement of my local assembly district because they have a problem that I am married to a man. They said, I don't like that you call him your husband.
Well, that has nothing to do with the... Okay.
So when we were at the California GOP convention in Anaheim, somebody said it, the Republican Party is really good at sacrificing the good situation for the perfect situation that they never get.
Yeah. That's wow. Wow.
And I tell people, you know, if our platform, if our beliefs overlap 85%, and we can just kind of fine-tune and discuss that 15%, yet we are not supporting each other such that the candidate that I have 0% overlap with is getting elected. Does that do us any good?
Yeah.
So in response to what you've said, you know, my husband, James, who is the heart and soul of my campaign, and also, you know, the support of the Glendale parents with what's kicked off with the school board meetings, we are doing it ourselves, and we are getting crazy engagement. Why? Because we're not doing it by the usual playbook. And this is just kind of what I want to tell people. And we're showing, you know, listen, we're going to blow through the March primary and get through with or without the support of the party at large. And then because people are taking notice, and again, who's taking notice? I have recovering Democrats who are, you know,
I like that.
contacting us. There's a girl from high school, a girl that I knew in high school, Geraldine is her name. She said, I've voted Democrat my entire life. I'm sick of what's happening with the state. I'm going to support you.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, my God. You know,
you know, it's interesting you say that because especially when it comes to endorsement kind of situation, because I know someone else, and I don't want to blow anybody up, and he's married to a woman. And because of the belief of just early endorsement, won't even get considered. But this person's been working his butt off for a year. So you're 100% right, sacrificing the believed great for what's good. We don't have our greatest strength is our greatest weakness, which is the preeminence of the individual. That's our greatest strength, but it's also our greatest weakness. Because what I'm starting to find out, everyone's idea is the best idea. And if they don't agree with what's happening, they will throw poke a hole in the boat because they don't agree.
Right.
And I was saying it to my buddy this morning when walking dog. I go, look, guys, truth be told, before we worry about voting machines, before we worried about, well, the Democrats do ballot harvesting and they cheat. Before that, we have to get ourselves tuned and sharpened to get on the field.
Yep.
From my perspective, we're missing some face masks. If I'm going to use football, face masks, some people don't have cleats on, and then we're going, let's go out there and compete. I'm like, we're competing against the Dallas Cowboys, man.
Right.
They've got money and backing. We need to be more strategic. We have to look at scenarios to go, okay, what's going to work? Not just, this is where I sit and that's it. I get it. I've had these conversations many, many different times with different groups. And it's like, we have to be malleable, not to forfeit your values, but to fit, where are you? And that's why I go back again to conservatism at least should be about the Bill of Rights. It should be about our Declaration of Independence. What does our Declaration of Independence really say? All man is created evil.
Right.
Evil, sorry. We're fallen, but we're created equal, right? We start from there. Wherever you are, your message can resonate. If you start from there, if you go over to an area that says, well, I hear you guys don't like gay people. Okay, but I do believe that you shouldn't be taxed, that you should decide where you want to live and how you want to work, that you should be able to have the life that you want as long as, like we said, infringe. Hey, I hear you don't like black people. You go down to well, okay, but I know you should keep more of your money in your pocket. You
Right.
should be able to decide where your family goes to school. That message resonates everywhere.
And if you don't like black people, that is your opinion. You have a right to your opinion. I don't
course.
agree with your opinion, but I'm not going to forcibly make you think a different way.
Exactly.
That is not the American way. Now, the best thing that I can do, and this is kind of what I tell other people, other gay people who think that I'm a self-hating gay man.
I can tell you about some self-hating black stuff too. Yeah.
So they say, oh, you're never going to get acceptance from those people. I tell people the way that you get respect from people is by doing something respectable.
There you go.
And I don't lead with my gay. I lead with my principles. My principles being smaller government, lower taxes, stay out of my way, I'll stay out of your way.
Right.
Really, a country should be giving 3 things to its citizens: health, wealth, security.
That's it.
Let's focus on those 3: health, wealth, security.
Well, and you know what we do too? It's like the art of war. We also like to play on their playground.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I like gays, immigrants, and women's bodies. So then the Republicans are fighting that they're not against this, they're not against this, and they're not against this. Never what they're for. And those things that they're for doesn't matter if you're gay, a woman, or an immigrant, is because those things that are for everyone else.
And so the perfect example that I'll give you is the schism that was trying to occur during the California GOP convention, where they were trying to redefine the party platform.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of older, gray-haired, but a lot of younger people who were saying, no to the change in the party platform. Really, the big thing is for people who don't know at home, it was a movement, I think spearheaded by the Log Cabin Republicans, to remove 2 things from the party platform. Number 1 was the definition of marriage between a man and a woman. And number 2 was to protect the sanctity of life.
Yes.
And I was there, I guess, me being a math and science geek, I love word problems. I still love solving word problems. And so my whole thing was, this word problem, I can solve it.
Yeah.
So number 1, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive where you remove it, right?
Yeah.
So in my opinion, this is really what I want to get out to all Republicans and even the Log Cabin Republicans. I am married to my husband. That is a social contract. That is a legal contract.
Mm-hmm.
And the anecdote that I give people is when I was in medical school, I was a 4th-year medical student. It was September of 2002. I was in my intensive care, my ICU rotation, which arguably was the rotation that just completely changed my life. Like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so during that month in San Diego, we had a man. He was in his early 50s. He was dying of AIDS.
Wow.
And he was completely unconscious. He had his partner at the bedside. They were not legally married. I say his partner, his life companion. And because they weren't married and because he wasn't legally able to make decisions, we had to call that man's family, his estranged parents in, I think it was Iowa. And they were making medical decisions. We were listening on speakerphone. His partner was there. And, the parents, and especially the father, if you read between the lines, you could hear it in his voice, in his tone, that his son got what was coming to him because of this. And it was just so emotionally traumatizing for everybody. So from that standpoint, the man at the bedside should have been the one controlling all the medical decisions, right? And so that is the legal contract that I believe that 2 consenting adults should be able to enter into. Now, people say, oh, it's a gateway. You can marry your dog. You can marry a child. You can marry 2 separate people. No, dogs cannot give consent.
And
children cannot give consent. This is a contract, and we limit it to 2 people because we
adults.
Can't do that when we make the law. This is a contract between 2 consenting adults. Legally speaking, and that is what James and I have. We were not married in a church. We were not married in a religious institution.
Capacity, yeah.
I also believe that when the Catholic Church, Protestant Church, what have you, says, I don't want to be forced to marry a man and a man or a woman and a woman because that is against my beliefs. Absolutely, they should not be compelled by our government to do that.
Right.
So I still do think that the Republican Party can honor religious marriage, that religious contract between a man and a woman, absolutely, when there is a legal contract that two people can get into
Yeah.
without infringing on people's religious liberties. So I just don't understand why the Republican Party cannot be more thoughtful about this and be a nerd like me and solve this word problem.
It's okay. So being a nerd, because I actually did this conversation on Bryce Eddy's show with Cole Brocato, because there's a lot of uproar on both sides, and I want to be fair to the whole situation. The log cabin Republicans didn't lead the way on the abortion stuff. That they didn't really have much to say. The biggest thing was the way family was structured.
Okay.
And the way the initial phrasing, I think you may have gotten an initial one, but the initial phrasing of family didn't have the marriage begins with, or marriage is seen as between a man and a woman. That was the only thing that was taken out. My thought process, and I even wrote a different point where it's like, I look at it as talk to the people where they are, what exists in our country today, not necessarily only saying what we believe marriage is between a man and a woman, that's it. You can believe that. And then there's existing, your situation. There's also like my situation, which I grew up in, which is a single parent.
Mm-hmm.
I go, okay, as Americans, we move around. We go, what our family is. We define that for ourselves. And that is it being American.
Right.
So how does the party help those people? People who of all walks that assign that they go, this is what family does. And then again, I go back to, then we go limited government.
Yep.
More money in your pocket gives you more access and the safety to be able to reach that potential.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless if you're a man and woman in a relationship, if you're a man and man in a legal document, if you want to say that, or a single parent. That's how I looked at it. And then coming into the sense of we want the wording marriage between a man and a woman. We have a religious pillar. I just thought, well, just put it in there.
Right.
Now you remove the argument from the left to go, you see, they don't care about you being married, and then you put it into religion because then you force them to have to say your religion sucks.
Right.
They don't want to actually openly say that in that way. They say it in different ways, right? Then you also have family going, we're trying to help families, however they exist. Whether we agree they should exist a certain way or not, that's not what the pillar should be for. It should be, what does the party offer you who believes you're in a family that runs this way? So I think it would go twofold. It shows that we see what's going on in our country. The number of single parents is higher than ever before.
Yep.
We should speak to that too. The number of same-sex couples are higher than ever before. Why don't we speak to that we can still offer you a better option than those that just say we like that you're dating each other. We like that you guys are married to each other. We like that your skin color is a certain way, because that's all they're saying at the end of the day.
Because if you dare to think any differently, you're done.
You're done.
Out.
You are done. I've had people say, does he even remember he's African?
Oh gosh, really?
African people, and it comes, and usually, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it comes from within first. It comes from the black folks first. Like it comes from our Armenian or gay people first.
Yep.
It doesn't come from that random white guy they keep telling us is out there.
Right.
That's what I noticed first when I started to kind of speak out. It was never coming from the white guy that they told me I need to be careful. It always came from my own first, right? So if we as a party can look, I say we need to sell who we are. So if we as a party can go, look, West Hollywood, if you want a better existence, you don't want the homelessness over there like that. You don't want the crime high like that. You want to put more money in your pocket. You want to be able to have your own autonomy, which is what they're screaming for. Mm-hmm. That's what the conservatives offer. Right. We may not agree that marriage is this, but you get to go and then live your own life with more opportunity.
Right.
But they've highlighted going, this is what values in order for you to move forward within your policies. And then the Republican Party that I've watched go, no, we're not that. You'll never win that battle. They have too much money, time put into going, they're anti this for us to be like, no, we're not anti this. Trust us. No, just show them.
Right.
Just be that based on our values, not based on trying to cater to like, no, we'll be cool with you married in 3 months. Like what? No, if that's not going to work, stop trying to play that game.
And I think and my husband has been integral in this because I'm very professorial. I'm not good at sales. I'm very good at giving you a 5-minute discussion or a 5-minute explanation that details a problem. But when we're talking and he asks me a question within 7 seconds, if I haven't made my point, he says, I'm bored, and he turns around and walks away.
Oh, man, that's wow. Okay, that's great. It's
been trial by fire because, I have to go tell people, or we just have to get our message across, right? I am not anti-gay. I am not anti-woman, right? So do I believe that 2 million unplanned pregnancies in this country every year, 1 million abortions in this country every year. Do I think that is a problem that can be improved? Yes, I do.
Yep.
Do I think things should be criminalized? That is not how I would go about it.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of Americans believe there should be some limitations on abortion.
Yes.
They don't believe that it should be freely available on demand up until the day the child is born, right?
Yep.
And I also, as Nikki Haley said, can we not all agree that late-term abortions are barbaric? Me as a physician, yes, they are barbaric. That child has a chance of life. You shouldn't intentionally terminate that child's life. On the flip side, do we think that everything except, rape and incest should be outlawed?
Mm.
Ideally, you shouldn't outlaw those things, but is this a failure of pregnancy planning? Is this a failure of prevention? Is this a failure of access to education, access to contraception? Yes, it is, and that is what I would like to address.
Uh-huh.
And you have to get that message across. Again, I'm being professorial because I should have gotten to that point within 7 seconds.
No. It was great because I think that's a great point that you made right there, right? And I only want to push back in the sense that it hasn't been a lack of education because look what's been taught since we were kids.
Uh-huh.
We started because I remember I was like, we need to be taught this stuff.
Yes.
As a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Sex in a sense of how sex is even looked at, how easily it's accessible now comparatively.
Uh-huh.
We've actually sexualized our culture more, but we haven't relationalized our culture.
Correct.
So we haven't taught relationship. We've taught sex.
Right.
That's what's missing. It's not more education on like how the body works and what move and put it in. No, people know that stuff. People can literally on our phones do it for free. Where back in the day, had to go to the back to go through that little beaded curtain at the rental place or look behind the dark section, right, to be like, oh, there's a little woman. This.
Yep.
Now you can get it on your phone
Yep.
if you have a phone. So it's not about sex. It's about relationship, and we have to then sell relationship being awesome. Where they've sold free love is awesome, which is ultimately indiscriminate sex. That's
right.
I think that's where we're missing more than anything else. And so you go, I said this the other day on that Democratic Socialist podcast. I go, he's like, well, abortion, do you think should we ban it? I go, look, for me, I think there should be no abortion because that's a baby. That's like the most innocent among us.
And also, it's a terrible form of birth control.
It's a terrible. It will mess you up. People don't they never talk about how much it will mess the woman up for going through this. But then on the other side, I go, how about if you want to have it all, let the free market decide.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put it in the government to fund it.
Right.
And if you have that happen, as a woman, as a man, as an area, it won't be as easy to just jump in bed to know you can go pick up some so-and-so over at CVS.
Uh-huh.
If you got to come out of pocket, you move differently. If you got to come out of pocket, I don't know if I'm going to go out to that party and let that dude just do this because, and not saying there'll be stuff that happens, but let the free market, because the numbers we've seen is because the government funded it in all 50 states. When before Roe v. Wade passed, only 15 states had it at the most minimal levels.
Uh-huh.
So the expansion of it isn't the want to, it's the availability based on it being funded. They've manipulated the market. If everything was on a free market right now, truly free market based, not crony capitalism, free market, a lot of our issues would go away because people wouldn't fund that stuff because they would have to come out of our own pocket. The drag queen story hours. If it's free market and not have to go into Lindsay Horvath, who's a supervisor using our money to go at a public space like the library, it wouldn't be as prevalent. I guarantee these things wouldn't exist as prevalently if it's not backed and paid for by the government who's manipulating us to go down this certain path of humanity. Everyone should be afraid of that. Then we'll see what abortion numbers are.
And also just from my, I have to think about it more. I have to read into it more. That wouldn't be my first knee-jerk reaction on how to deal with it. Because, for example, in the medical literature, for example, we have very good data to suggest that even a small copay, so let's say you have birth control for free versus you have a small copay of $5, $2 even, that when there's that small copay, that there's a giant step down in the compliance and the use of contraceptives, for example. So if you want somebody to pay,
so you're saying that the contraceptives, like you mean like if they were going to have to copay for condoms, they won't do it because the condoms cost.
Correct.
Yes.
And so what that's going to do is it's going to penalize lower socioeconomic women more, and arguably they're the ones who you
No,
want to try to.
I was saying,
raise.
but I would say abortion itself.
Uh-huh.
Not that, because that's the part of the education is like in relationships. This is what's happened. These are the tools that if you don't want to have it happen early, you don't do this. Not this happens when you have sex. You use this stuff to make it stop. If it doesn't work, then you use these stuff to get rid of the pregnancy. It's this part of it over here that is funded so much that we go, okay, we'll just remove that. We'll give you the condoms. We'll give you the pill. We'll give you all those things. But when you know you don't have that safety net right there that you can just show up. The Plan B pill made it like Tic Tacs, man.
Okay.
So in that sense, this is not all or nothing here, right? The only thing you take away at all or nothing is paying for the murder side of it that I see. So if we can remove that aspect, the onus goes more on the individual, which is the preeminence of the individual, right?
And you think that's going to dissuade women from, because the question is that going to dissuade women from having sex that will then result in the unplanned pregnancy?
Yes.
Is the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you have to think about it that way. If at this point people don't have to think about it like that, they don't.
I'm sure that's been studied. Again, I don't know the data off the top of my head, which is why I'm not going to discuss it and talk about it. But also, you mentioned Plan B. So Plan B is actually still contraception. It's not an abortifacient.
Okay.
So what it does, and I'll give some professorial.
There it is. Let's get into. Hold on, my glasses are on. I already beat you guys.
No, so it's funny because any woman who's done, let's say, IVF, for example, knows that when they are going to harvest the eggs, they have about a 12 to 24-hour window to do so because the eggs are super duper fragile.
Right.
And if they are not fertilized within 12 to 24 hours,
you lose them all.
And just that egg it'll just degenerate if it's not fertilized. So the sperm that fertilize the egg have entered the uterus 2 or 3 days prior.
Oh wow!
And it takes them that long to swim up.
Yeah.
And so what happens is if you take Plan B immediately after having sex, then the elevated hormone level prevents you from releasing an egg in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Okay.
So the egg that would normally come out, this is an allegory for life, right? The men are just lying. The men are just sitting there waiting for the woman to come out.
She's like, I'm good.
Just pounce on her. And so, what it does is the sperm that are waiting there for the egg to come out, then if you take it within 24 hours, whatever it is, of having sex, the egg never comes out of the ovary.
Oh wow!
And then you never get pregnant. So it's not actually
fertilized
and it's abortifacient. It's birth control.
It's birth control.
But it gives you those ups and downs, which side effects are more pronounced, hot flashes, hormonal stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not ideal. You would want something just more consistent. But that is just the last stopgap measure.
And I think because let's look at healthcare in general. It's not about prevention. And everything up until
it's all reactive. It's not proactive. Yep.
So if you're funding like reaction, of course people are going to think that's the way to move.
Right.
But if you're funding prevention, you're starting
speaking
at
my language.
Right. And then you're starting at like whether it's 12 in junior high and you're telling them this is how it happens. You don't want to do to this point because this will cost you $50,000.
Yeah.
You tell me a 14-year-old is going to be like, and I know our hormones are high and we still take risk anyway. But it's a different sense of risk when especially telling you, hey, you got to get to college. Don't ruin your life over here when you have a $50,000 thing on top or whatever that cost will be. For a teenager, it changes.
So it's funny. It's funny that you say that because, and that is how I would normally kind of go about, and I think that's what the historic teaching is. But a woman that I was talking to, who but she shall remain nameless, said that when we start teaching children that having a child is a privilege, being a teacher and raising a responsible adult, a citizen, creating that individual from scratch, and that is a privilege and an honor, then you will get young people to ascribe more importance to sex and the fact that you can then create a child. So you kind of instill on them that this is something that you can create and it's all yours.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing to have, a great creation to have. You just need to be ready for it and prepared. Like, this is a big plan. She says, and if you talk about it that way, you'll maybe instill more honor and importance in the kids.
I think it's bringing in those things. And let me tell you this, the idea of the free market with abortion, this is new to me. I just thought about this like a week or so ago. I was like, wait a second. oh, it wouldn't be running, So I think you bring that in. But even how she's describing that, that's also describing the importance of a relationship, right? That's to me then
Right.
a lot of people, even myself, before I got closer to the Lord, before I'm in this situation now, I was out there as a secular person. Relationships were just like a means to an end. Well, I'm here, so I'm happy now. I'm here because maybe we're gonna get married, and okay, I want a kid. Not I want to be a husband and I want to be a father.
Right.
Is I'm gonna be married and have a kid. You're already just classifying it differently. So let's take what she says about the importance and like what the value. You get honored with this chance, but then let's bring in the relationship. Because there's a possibility to get honored here in the relationship. Who are you with? You want to look for somebody that matches like your likes, your dislikes. You want to filter through those things and see the values, because you will be then entering a space where you will have an opportunity for something so glorious. And we're fortunate, like I said earlier, we're gonna have a baby, and I was on the other side of the fence. I've had 3. Two of them I didn't know. One of them I did. And I think to this day, I'm 43 years old. That kid could be 20 right now. That's a 20-year-old human I could have right now, at least for the first one. And that breaks my heart every time I think about it. And thank God for his forgiveness so I could move forward to then. I am so excited talking to the baby bump and all this stuff, but we have a relationship to see who we are and what is a relationship, which, again, 10 years of trying to learn what that was outside of college. So you bring in those 2 factors, which I believe in her, the importance of what a child is in general, to the importance of what a relationship brings and what that is in general. Now you have people's values moving from YOLO, right? Because we were pushed on that stuff hard to, I want to build something, foundation. I want to pass it down to my next generation. I want to have stuff that it means more than just that momentary gratification. We've been taught, educated the other way for so long. We need to shift that, and let's bring the importance of relationship and family back into it. Like, family's fun. Traditions are cool.
So you mentioned children. So let's talk about, because you said, what have you had enough of? You had enough of hypersexualization of children.
Yes.
When did you first clue into that? What do you think are the responsible factors? How would you like to see this change moving forward?
For me, it was a mixed bag. I started seeing there's one of my godsons. He's 13, and
the one that was there on that fateful day.
No, he wasn't there on that day.
Okay.
It was he's actually has a different father, so it was the same mother but different father. So I met him when he was 3.
Okay.
And I see, and he's not as much, but I see a lot of his other male friends. I've just watched men's like masculinity just be kind of weighing down so much that a man doesn't even want to step in and defend someone, let alone a woman, just defend their friend or anything, because it's like. So when I first started seeing that, it was probably about 5 or 10 years ago with the toxic masculinity being tossed around, and I'm just kind of looking at people, and I saw this one kid, this family I used to be really close with. When I first moved out here, he was in his mother's belly, like due in probably 2 weeks. And then he had a sister. Sister was born a year or 2 later. And I watched how they were raised. And the son was raised to be afraid of everything that moved. Everything that moved. You're going to die if you walk here. So he's nervous Nelly. To the point where he ended up sleeping in his grandparents' bed, at least as far as I know, up until he was 17 years old.
Okay.
Right? So something's off there.
Okay.
The daughter was taught to be fearless, where she didn't. I'm on my own. I'm studying my own. I'm ready. She would probably have moved out at 15 if she had a chance. And so I'm watching these 2 things, and I'm like, what's going on? And I'm watching the dynamic of the home, and we watch the messaging that Hollywood and music's saying, and they're propelling up this aggressive female and this docile male, which flips kind of how the natural order of how we move. Men tend to be more aggressive. Women tend to be more docile. And we just flip that order. And I'm watching in the home, and I'm watching that extend out. I'm seeing the stuff extend out in TV, but I'm watching it directly and seeing the chaos that's going on here, the damage that's going on. I'm like, wow, why would any guy want to get in these relationships with aggressive masculine women? That's now being perpetuated as that's what a real woman is. And a man's over here pulling himself back when men are the ones that stand in the way of the danger. They stand in the way. So society, that safety you brought up, that's the historical standing.
Right.
That's the nature of who we want. Give us purpose to do that. When I start watching those 2 things elevate at the same time. I'm like, this is not right. Something's off here.
I have a question. So the parents of those two kids, American-born, kids of immigrants, like who were they?
So the mother is immigrated here, but the father was born here. And the father was born here. UCL, you went to, no, didn't go to UCLA, but grew up around that area, Westwood, UCLA, so comes from money.
Okay.
Saw lack of discipline from the parents. Parents paid for everything they wanted to do, everything. The fact the kid was out there gambling in his college, and he was like, I'm going to pay for it anyway, like comes back here. There was no discipline ever brought into him, right? And I noticed that growing up in Evanston, I noticed that, unfortunately, a lot with the upper middle class white families especially, that they didn't want to be too heavy-handed on their child. They wanted to take care of him too much. They want to make sure he's okay.
That's the problem with Gen X, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The kids of the baby boomers.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and to be fair, honestly, I want to be as transparent as I can. That's part of that was in me too. My mom, the thing that made my mom different was because she came from a country where it was like your education is what gets you to the next level. So she didn't let me slide on that, but there are other things. It wasn't necessarily my fault. Or I saw the world go, no, it's okay because you don't have this and you don't have that. Not like you still got to make your bed, bro. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter that your dad wasn't around. Make your bed.
I was at a gala yesterday and I was talking to a guy and we were actually lamenting in our small businesses how we were finding it difficult to hire somebody who's good. And I said, yeah, it's just difficult to find somebody with the gumption and the responsibility who just takes charge and takes ownership. And he says, yeah, it's how do you find somebody with integrity? Because that's really what you want. And then I just had this moment of clarity, and I said, I looked at him because in the short amount of time we were talking, he struck me as somebody with integrity. I said, was one of your parents a tyrant? And he says, my mother just set the ground rules. And I said, oh, okay. I said, because my mother was definitely a tyrant. And I told him, some of the things, just how my mother just ruled the household with an iron fist. Not that my father wasn't there, but my father was just very kind of easygoing. Yeah. If somebody, one of the cousins called the house, they wished that my dad would answer. So that when they said, hey, can we come, swim in the pool, he would always say yes.
Yeah, come over. No. Yeah.
So when I explained, he says, oh, yeah, my mother was a tyrant. And then there was a woman next to me. And we were explaining, and then she was, a physician and stuff. And I said, oh, was one of your parents a tyrant? And she's like, both of my parents were tyrants. I don't know how to make people's parents tyrants, but this is just my observation as a child of immigrants, and because that was a very strong my origin story.
Yeah,
being the child of immigrants, that really is what did it. That hunger. That hunger of not having something and having to plan for it.
Right.
Arlen Specter, a former senator of Pennsylvania, said, and he was the child of immigrants, he said, when you give your children something you didn't have, you take away something from them that you do.
Wow. That's a great way to look at it, because that's the thing. That's the thing. Because it's like I could sit there and say, well, psychology has done this and the world has done that, and and we can talk about all the reasons why we're here. But then it goes back to what the woman you talked to the other day said, which is the importance of a child. Because you want them, yes, you don't want their life to be hard in the sense that some of the things you went through, but you don't want to lose the values that made you strong enough to be able to have a child, to care enough to put yourself in a position now to have a child. You don't want to lose that for the sense of, well, I don't want to mess them up. And I saw a lot of that growing up, and I saw that move to another level this generation when I'm moving out here at 24, watching my buddy raise his kids and his friends. So it's about, and I would say the tyrant, I get what they're saying. I would say tyrannical rule as opposed to tyrannical being. Yep. Because there's some tyrannical beings who just walk around and they're screaming.
Like the liberal white women who want to tell their kids what to do and also want to tell other people
everybody else what to do.
Yes.
And so, you know what I saw the other day? Not the other day. It was a couple years ago.
The liberal white woman in the wild.
I saw the effect of the liberal white woman.
I see.
To the point where...
And an arrow on.
Oh, close. It was at a soccer game.
Okay.
And they had silent Saturdays. So So
this is where you can't cheer
this is where you can't cheer
because it'll trigger somebody.
Yes,
Oh my
because
God.
we
Do you
want
do
the
that,
kids.
clapping thing.
They actually some did this, and it was
This
one
is
of
not
the.
a polo match where you're just doing the
it was
silent clap.
the kids were aged 9 to 12, and they said they want a chance for the kids to deal with themselves. So only the kids and the refs, if the refs say it, and the refs usually are some guy who's just in there making $20 a month or $20 an hour, and can't wait to be done by 2 to have their Saturday back.
He should work at a McDonald's.
$20, yeah, and you could be a manager.
Yeah.
But you can not have to deal with those kids, but homeless people. No, but you have these parents are sitting there. I saw some of the men.
But it's crazy because the children, right, that's what they're going to thrive off of. That is what's going to get them to do more.
Yes.
And it's not empty base encouragement, right? It's not like, we're going to congratulate you for losing the game.
No.
During the game, come on, you can do it, you can do it. This world is backwards.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. It's so funny. I love that you made that point. I'll never forget. So I didn't have my dad with me, but I had a big brother, big sister program. I had a big brother growing up who still in my life today, like still knows kids. All this stuff's amazing. And he didn't come to a bunch of my football games. But, like, when he came, I felt like I showed out more. And I'll never forget this one time we're playing Maine East, and he's coming in. I knew he was in the stadium. I was like, oh, here. I was like, oh, Pete's here, you know.
Started to showboat.
I gotta show up first play. And this is after my coach was like, you don't seem like you're ready to play. I go, what? I'm always ready to play, right? First play, 65-yard run, boom, touchdown.
Wow.
I walked over to the coach, and I was like, I think I'm ready now. But I remember thinking, he saw me, you know?
Right.
And
Exactly.
it's like it's such a thing that matters and exists. And when we really look at, like, what's happening, we started, like, what's really getting used. California doing what they're doing to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're working more and more to make our children these automatons that are separate from family, so they can then sway them depending on who's in power at the time.
Right.
That's a very dangerous place to be. We've seen, even from January 6th, some people's kids turning on them, saying, like, oh, they were there, to have the FBI come in and arrest them. That's a very, very dangerous place. We got to look back at history, whether it's the brown shirts in Germany, Mao's Red Army, or we have the Bolsheviks revolt. They use the youth to destroy the history, to destroy the foundation. And I said this to this guy. It matters because our ancestors, like yours, even our first generation, they made it to this peaceful place. They made it. People get shot, killed. We're looking at people parachuting, getting their families taken away and beheaded today in 2023. Imagine 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever it is, of what your ancestors, my ancestors did so we could be here doing this, complaining about our government. But yet people want to burn the place down? Like, they made it so you can be here.
Right.
Revere that. But as a culture, we go, no, it didn't exist. They were old and backwards. Most people can't. They used to say in kindergarten in the 1800s, the kids had to memorize John, the book of John. The book of John in kindergarten. Now you can't even ask somebody to memorize one paragraph, let alone a whole book in the Bible. Like, that shows where our standards have gone.
And that is why I would like to redefine, refocus, reset the Republican Party as the party of immigrants, because they are the Americans who come here, right? They take the oath of citizenship, and they come here with the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, fresh in their head.
Yeah.
And they have that hardship. They have that hunger.
Yep.
Not that I want a war to come to us, right? But yes, there was World War II. World War I, obviously, we lost American soldiers. But, I mean, a war on American soil since the Civil War hasn't happened. But in Europe, war is fresh in their minds. In the Middle East, war is fresh in their minds. In Africa, war is fresh in their minds. And that is why they have this belief, this respect for our Bill of Rights.
Yes.
And I think that if you recenter it on immigrants and if you welcome immigrants in and say, we don't care who you are, we don't necessarily care about every single thing that you believe in, so long as you believe in these 10 things, those Bill of Rights that we had, we'll be okay, we'll be fine. And that is how I, as an Armenian immigrant, even though I'm a gay man, which ranks low, but my husband, who's also an immigrant, that is how I want to redefine the party and refocus and say, this is our mission statement.
Yes.
And this is what we do.
And I love that, because this is, I think that's definitely where the win is, right? For example, at the convention, or when we had the convention in Anaheim, I happened, because I used to do dental shows down there, so I know the lay of the land a little bit. So I parked actually behind the convention center, which is next to the hotel, and it was open. And I was like, okay, great. I parked there. I didn't think anything of it. I'm walking by, and for those 3 days we were there, they were having immigrant nationalization services going on, and I was like, and one of the days I'm there, they had the alderman or the assembly district guy had his like pop up standing right there, and I'm just like, and to be fair, with the new board, we've worked tirelessly to go to more of those nationalization services, to go do more voter registration. But that's what kind of starts to happen when you have an area ran by one side, county clerk's office, and you have your nationalization day work by one side. You get to your unions. The unions get to go inside and then sign people up as Democrats. But we still need to be there. We need to know these things, because a lot of the issues, like I said before we worry about the machines or the Democrats, we need to fill our gaps. And a lot of our gaps is being present at a nationalization service, like you said, to let them know, hey, you came here for this, for a republic.
Right.
I have a sign that says we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, vote Republican. Like mark it that way so they see it. Why? Because they've just been hearing what we are fresh in their minds.
Right.
If you give them another month to watch TV and have their cell phones, and then you come with, no, we're actually a republic, why do they have to care to remember that?
Right.
Right? They can go, yeah, but this side's been telling me you guys hate me because I'm not from here.
Right.
And you go, no. It's founded on here and look, this is what we are. So again, it's on us to be more active, to get out there. And unfortunately, as much as the county party is trying to do, we as Republicans cannot wait for the county party to go out and set up something at the park. We can't go and wait to go to voter registration at a nationalization day around here. Like, we can't wait for that. We're working tirelessly to build that back up, to do more. If you can go to lagop.org right now and look on our calendar, we have multiple events going on, which before this board happened, it was like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Now we have almost every day there's something going on. So we're trying to catch up to where I think people, grassroots, if you will, are already been and starving for more. So I tell grassroots, get out there, continue to get out there, but show them the love that you are. Not just what you're fighting against. Because a lot of times it's just like, let's go protest. That's, yes. But who are we? Because all people are seeing is, oh, you guys just say no.
And this is where I agree with you when you say we need to play their game. We need to play their game of identity politics, right? I don't lead with my gay, but when somebody calls me a homophobe, I say, I'm not a homophobe. Neither is my husband, right? I will play your identity politics game, and I will beat you at it. And so that's what I think. When these new immigrants, these new naturalized citizens see somebody who looks like them.
Yep.
I'm not blonde-haired and blue-eyed.
Yep.
You're not blonde-haired and blue-eyed. The only immigrant in this household is my husband is blonde-haired and blue-eyed.
But he has an accent, so it's different. It's different.
So this is where you say, I'm going to play their identity politics.
Yes.
Right? And I'm going to show them my identity, but that's only that outside layer, which then the depths of me speak to the Constitution.
Yes.
Speak to rights.
Because it gives the people, everyone wants a warm intro. And again, they've done such a great job marketing that if you even consider thinking about conservatism or Republican, you're already ostracized. You're done. Sorry.
Right.
And we're combating that message. We're not going, but don't combat it with, no, we're not. No, just combat it with who we are. And we did a voter registration at USC about a month ago. And it was so beautiful. Like, Alex, you would have loved it. So the person who was setting it up, who put the whole event together, she put us directly across from the Democratic Party, right? So I'm walking up. I was there first. I'm setting up. I'm like, I look over, and the Democratic Party to their, I guess I would say to their
insanity, delusion.
To me, it was a bunch of older. What is it? I would say not summer of love type. Free love type professors.
Okay. And
then a bunch of women that were going to be there with their like women's gender studies kind of group. One guy who was white and then one dude who was black. And that was it. But it was like 7 of them kind of looking over. Then you look across the way, and I'm put together well, standing tall, been working out, so I feel good.
Yeah.
The next to me is another brother who's like 2 inches taller than me, who's there with his wife, just shows up with their 2 boys. So you have these 2 black men standing there, put together well, able to speak, clearly, like away from what they've seen. Then you see the other side who just happens to have like this hodgepodge of people to play their game of we're accepting everyone.
Yeah.
But
the
just
party of inclusion.
Yeah, and I just look over and I'm laughing to myself. We ended up at one point with a crowd around us going back and forth with us. But
did they try to persuade people that you were like the Nation of Islam?
No. But some people looked at us like we were. This one girl and like her buddy, they were walking by, a black girl, and she looked over and she's like, oh no, and ran. I'm like, but I had a great conversation with this gay kid from Texas, and he was like, look, I'm from Texas, my dad's conservative, and yeah, I agree with some of the stuff, but I came out here and I consider that I'm a Democrat and liberal. I'm like, okay. And everything we talked about, he was like, I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. I go, you see? The reason why, and then I go, if you support a side that wants to censor me so we can't even have a conversation, you shouldn't trust that side. And because they say they like you because of who you decide to sleep with, you probably shouldn't trust them either, because then they can sell you anything. This is why. And there was like 6 or 7 people around there going, huh. I go, we just agreed on 99% of things.
Right.
99. We didn't bring up anything we didn't agree in. He's like, yeah, you're right. Kids shouldn't. You're right. I think that, you're right. It should be decent. You're right. Taxes suck. And so you see right there, and you can play this in a way where you talk to the person. Ask them who they are. What do you want to do in your life? It's easier or harder to do with them on your, talk to the person.
Right.
Right. The more we do that, the more then we leave that situation and they go, he was a conservative? He was a Republican? He was making some sense. Not fighting off what we're not. Continue to show who we are. Don't forget there's that love in there. Because we can come there. Michael Knowles, everyone, check out how Michael Knowles does it. He always, he goes,
those big chompers.
Yep.
Yes.
He's like, I don't hate you. I just think that, communism is the best way to kill the most people. I don't hate you. Like, he always has this kind of bright love to what he is.
Yep.
We need to bring more of that back. I know we're fighting something very dark. I get it. I've seen it firsthand. But we don't want to lose ourselves in the darkness, because then ultimately the darkness wins. We got to stay in the light of all this. And in that light, we have to bring in ourselves. We have to do our own story hours.
Right.
How's that? Instead of just shutting down someone else's, let's do our own story hours.
So that is, it's funny that you bring that up, because I spoke to somebody about this whole, we were talking about Pickles. The drag queen story hour. So me personally, do I think that a grown man who dresses up as a woman and who wears short shorts and actually has a prosthetic that makes it look like he has a camel toe? There was a shot.
Really? Wow.
Right. And so do I think that person should be reading to children when that person doesn't put in as much energy to read to old people at a retirement home, doesn't read to veterans at a veterans hospital? Right. Just the outreach is limited to that. Do I think those story hours are a good idea? No, I personally would not subscribe to them. I think, parents, don't take your kids to them, but that's just me, right? Do I think that people should get there and cancel those events? Same as my event, for example, my Al Espresso meet and greet got canceled because people in Burbank, including the mayor and one of the elected school board officials, Emily Weisberg, cheered it on. The doxing. Do I think that should happen? No, because that makes us just as bad as them. I would have gone to LA City Council, which oversees the libraries, and said, hey, we don't want our tax dollars going to this. We don't think it's a good idea. From what I hear, the parents did make repeated phone calls.
Yes, we did.
Which fell on deaf ears.
Yep.
So do I understand how their government were unresponsive to them and this what drove them to that? Yes, I get it. So that is how I feel. That wouldn't be my first move, but sounds like these parents made that their first move.
That was on the calls. Yeah, we did a meeting 3 days before, and go, this is what we're going to do. Make sure you call them, because the first time that Lindsay had hers canceled was because parents called and they listened to them.
Okay.
This time the reason why people went out is because they didn't listen. Right. And my argument again with that is going back to the free market argument. The only reason why they can do this and force us down is because the elected officials go, we're going to use your tax dollars and then put it in a public space.
Yeah.
Great. If you guys want to do that, if Lindsay Horvath wants to host something for Pickles for children, do it at her house. Do
Right.
it at a private
I agree.
business.
Not with public funds, not on public places.
But they know they can't. They know it wouldn't work. That's why.
And just me and me, somebody saying, oh, well, because you're an anti-trans, you're a fascist, all those, that's why you want to do it. No, me, I am tight-fisted.
Yeah.
I am an Armenian, the son of Armenian immigrants. I am tight-fisted. So
Yep.
I say, don't spend my money.
Yeah.
Lower my taxes.
Yes.
Don't make me spend taxes. I want you to spend money on fixing roads. I want you to spend money on security, keeping the streets safe, hiring cops.
Right.
I don't want you to do anything. You know what? Don't have a Bible story hour.
No.
Don't have a trans story hour. Have people do it on their own private
On their own private property.
Right.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
just lower our taxes.
And
Don't spend money on that superfluous stuff.
Even if they want to do, like, let's say this neighborhood want to do an outreach, right? And then like the city goes, hey, we have funds for if you want to put on a block party or whatever. If you submit forms and then Lindsay goes, we're going to okay it. That's for your area over there. And you guys got the consensus of the neighborhood to go, we're going to put something up here. This is why it's going to work.
And if it's transparent and equally
There
applied,
you go.
for example, like our constitutional rights are
Yeah.
equally applied to
Yeah.
people, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
And that is why we're more, I think, and I keep telling people, California is not a liberal state. California is a libertarian state.
It's true. Wow, that is true.
Right?
Yeah.
It's all about
Yeah.
personal responsibility and individual freedoms.
Leave me alone, man. Let me just live, brother.
Right.
Yeah.
You and the gold rush, and then what you make of it.
Yeah.
And then that's it. So, yeah, we're not a liberal state. We are a libertarian state. And we
that
need
are
to
run
remember.
by liberals right now. that's all it is. It's run by liberals. And it was to your point, even, when you talk about that, in a sense, don't do it on our tax dollars. And that was the thing that was funny, and people responding on like my post when I put it up there. They're like, if you don't like it, don't go, and this, that, and the other. I also say people are so busy arguing on their side, and that happens for us too. It's not just the drag story hour. It's who's coming. You heard in Pickles, this dude's own words, I like to read erotic fiction to children. That's what he said. I didn't say that. I can add on and infer the fact that he's running around like that. Look, I worked in West Hollywood for years. I see what happens and what the dress up thing is.
Yes.
Like we know what the impetus of this thing is.
Right.
Like I said this she was the editor of the Sun magazine was there at the time, or the San Fernando Sun or whatever. And we're talking, and she's like, well, some people just see it as entertainment. I go, come on, girl. I was like, that's the other side. As conservatives, we just got to talk normal. We can't just be like, well, no, because God, and I get it. But at the end of the day, I'm like, come on, girl, we're both adults. We both know where this comes from. If I had a stripper in there, it wouldn't be cool. Like, let's be real now.
Right.
The nature, he could be entertaining, and I get that. But the character of what he's going out there is sexual in its nature. It's kink.
Right.
Which we know this.
We had a similar episode, this hubbub with the Gay Armenian and Lesbian Association in Glendale.
Really?
Had a drag queen do a dance in a very traditional Armenian woman's dress, and then that turned immediately into a striptease, tore it off and did a striptease, and everybody was up in arms, and they said, oh, you guys are so homophobic, transphobic, and I said, well, no, again, this is coming from a gay man, this is a very traditional costume, a very traditional dance that is not sexual at all. If there was a buxom blonde who did this, and then just tore it off and started, dancing in her tassels and G-string, I still wouldn't think it's okay.
Exactly.
Right.
And this is what people, they do this a lot with the black community, black and brown, I would say. They put their disgust on it, and then they go, oh, then you don't support this community. Oh, you're anti-gay. Wait. Because you guys are denigrating a historical passion that we have. All of a sudden now I hate a whole group of people. Like, no. Don't just say because it's this, that means all the debauchery goes underneath it. And if I don't accept it, then I'm the problem. They tend to do that too much. And I've seen it in the black community. They cover for so much of this stuff that you're like, we have to go no anymore. We just got to go no and step in. And this is where masculine men step in and go, because what's happening, the results of that is our history and the true strength of where we come from is being thrown to the wolves and being ripped apart. So the future of these kids will be lost, and there would be automatons that will be used by your Gavin Newsoms, used by your Joe Bidens, by your Kamala Harris for their gain to send in money, continue to send money over to other countries while we be invaded at our southern border right now.
And how do you expect them to question authority when they have reading comprehension scores at barely 20%? How do you expect them not to be slaves to financial institutions, banks and things, when there's a 24% math proficiency in my alma mater, my high school? They can't see on a credit card statement, if I pay $250, $225 is going to go for interest and only $25, and they can't read those. Somebody was saying how, although I saw the cursive writing is no longer being
it's not
taught in
required.
schools. Although I saw now, I think maybe California's going to reintroduce it. I'm not sure. And
I
then
hope
somebody said the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, have been written in cursive. So if you don't teach it, you're going to have children who don't know what their rights are because they cannot read cursive writing.
And that's the point. That's the whole point, right? You look at Oregon and just let the governor pass a bill to take out grades. They want people to be stupid. Only way you can get over on people is if they're dumb or have no idea it's coming. And look at the smoke screen they use. They use your who you decide to sleep with. They use some immutable characteristics like your skin color. Like, people should be insulted.
Right.
That's the only thing they go, well, you got this skin color, that means you want all this stuff. I started earlier, Lord of the Rings. I'm a dork. Does that match with what they say black people are supposed to be about? Not based on what they sell. But then all of a sudden I grew up like this. Well, then I can't speak. I got to be on the side. And you actually ostracize people truly in a community. So communities in general need to stop going, if they don't cater to my skin color or who I'm sleeping with, then they must not care about how I want to live. They don't care about how you want to live, period. Let's just tell you that right now. They don't care what they've sold you. They don't care about you. They care about the vote to give them power to continue to spend and make hundreds of millions of dollars as public servants while we're paying $7 gas. They do not care about you. Just hope people can really understand that.
And what they don't realize is that people are being enabled towards the path of least resistance, because that gets short-term votes.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna drop another quote. I've been dropping quotes today by different people. So
make sure I pick them up before we leave.
By F. Somerset Maugham. And F. Somerset Maugham said, "It's a funny thing about life. If you refuse to accept anything but the very best, you often get it."
Wow.
And Oregon, rather than enabling these kids and saying, "Oh, you're unable to pass, and so without a high school diploma, you won't be able to, get taken seriously and get a job," why don't you elevate that child's quality of education to get that? With the Civil Rights Act in the 60s, the Voting Rights Act, they got rid of literacy tests.
Yeah. Because they said it was racist.
It was racist.
Yeah.
What have literacy rates done since the 1960s in the black community? They've gone down.
Yeah. But I bet you they can tell you about systematic racism and what type of sex partners they want.
Right.
But they can't read the cursive.
But if you held them to that standard and saying, if you cannot read, you will not be able to vote, you will not get your voice heard. Rather than enabling people, how many people would you inspire?
Exactly. That's the sad. We go back to the kids, man. Because that's the sad truth. And one of the things that I was so angry about in my 20s when I moved out here was that, and before that, in Chicago a little bit, Chicago was one of the most segregated places I ever grew up or came back as an adult. 2 girls were like, I can't tell my parents about you because you're black. One was Korean, one was Italian, Sicilian. And I'm like, well, this is Chicago. It's not the South or the rural areas that I was taught. This is literally in the middle of Chicago. And then I'm sitting there going, I remember handing out resumes, but I was lazy with it, maybe once a week. And then not getting called back and going, the reason why they're not calling me back is because my name is funny. This is all me.
Right.
This is all me at this point. So I used a little bit of what goes on in Chicago, and I take it all on me from what I was sold about this country, forgetting about all the facts and all the people that have helped me in from, junior high all the way from my whole life, going, well, this must be what it is. That was back in the early to mid 2000s. Now let's look to have people saying it's more racist now than it was in the Jim Crow South. What are they stopping themselves from even trying to achieve? Because, like you said, well, this is that, or that's acting white. These things that were said, that's acting white. You're not really yourself because you speak properly. Your clothes are brought up. which is an insult to everyone from the civil rights movement. Let's look at those videos.
Yep.
Suit and ties, dresses that were down past their midsection, or at least their shins. Or now who celebrated are wearing stripper nails, stripper eyelashes, and talking about if I'm not twerking or banging his so-and-so, I'm not a real this, that, and the other. And those are the heroes that are platformed up. Then now if you question it as a black person, I just think you're coming a little too hard on black people because of the trauma we had, and it's coming a little too hard. People wore suits and dresses to fight for their freedom and held themselves with a decorum to fight for their freedom, their God-given rights that's written out in the Declaration of Independence. What is this that we're doing now? What is this? Because this is not what they fought for. But yet, if you criticize that as anyone, but especially as a black, you're a coon. You're trying to act white. You don't remember you're African. And I even said this to a friend. I go, you're saying all this stuff to me, forgetting that I grew up in Evanston. I've been black my entire life. Single parent home. Been in and out of jail. Didn't graduate college. All these things that are the statistic that is the left.
Right.
That's where I was until, thank God for God. And I needed his help in order to just get my life back together. And now everyone, how can you think this way? How can you? I'm like, because I lived it for real. Multiple times here on welfare. Being like, this is not how it's supposed to go. And couldn't get out of my way until the moment I explained earlier. So don't tell me it's because your skin color you can't know math according to the African American History Museum. Having a nuclear family is white supremacy. Logic is white supremacy. Like, what are you talking about? Hard work? Like, what are you talking about? You're basically saying black people be lazy, don't have families because you don't need them. In and out of jail is fine. That's black. That's the skin color. People are missing the forest for the trees. They're telling you you aren't worth anything more than these base bullshit ass type of behaviors. That's what they're telling people, and having people celebrate it. Alex, it blows my mind, man. They're telling people, and I had a gay friend leave LA because it's like all they're telling you is you need to have sex with as many people as possible. He goes, I just want a relationship, and he moved back to New York because he's like, I can't handle it out here. So they're telling gay people, my friends that I've known out here, if you're not banging, you don't count. If you want something stable, you don't count. You need to be out there getting as much as you can. They want us debased. When you're debased and you're falling into darkness, then they can do whatever they want. They don't have to worry about you. Because just like it says, we the people, that is the most feared thing to any one of these elites is we the people.
Right.
And we forget that for the little baseless things.
Wow. Now I'm going to start crying.
Hey, then I worked. Yeah.
No, I was born without tear ducts.
Yeah.
Somebody once joked. Although I do, the one way you will definitely get me crying is the scene in Neverending Story where the horse.
Oh, come on now!
Falls
come on now! The darkness coming for. He's like, no, come on! What's the horse's name again?
Artaz.
Artaz.
Yes,
It was the Trail U and Artaz.
Yes.
That's right, Artaz. Oh man, that every time, man.
Every time.
And I think maybe Get Away. I remember I first saw that in daycare, and I was watching. Everything was fun and light.
Right?
You're like, yeah. You're like, yeah. Wait, what? What is that? Well, what about the horse? You know,
scarred an entire generation.
It did.
That and also the opening scene of Up.
Oh, come on, man! What are you doing? Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
Oh.
She's trying to run. She slows down. She can't make it to the top.
Oh, and then he's sitting there in the love. He's right next to her. And I'll tell you this. And you've been with your husband for 7 years now.
7, yes.
7. And Charlotte and I were gonna hit 2, or no, we just hit 2 in September 25th. And like I said before, about the importance of relationships. I used to be in and out of relationships, and I was like, oh, it's fine. And now I'm with her, and it's like I see this again with the grace of God, and I got close to God, got baptized in 22, and that January 1st, 2022, and understanding what his duty for me as a husband. Or have an idea, right? I'm not perfect at it at all, but have an idea. Now with her, I think about these moments and what we're sharing, and it's like the scene up, like life will happen. And now it matters, man. Now it's like, whoa, wait, this is like, whoa, like if something happened, I never used to think before if something happens, how I'd be like, well, things happen. Now I'm like, oh, wait. Or laughter, us dancing in the living room together while I play music, the house she makes food and us us working out at the gym together and these little moments, like I'm starting to go, oh no, this is a big deal. and yeah, it reminds you of the importance, but I never had to look at it like this. And it's been over the last like 2 weeks, I'm like, whoa, like, she really matters to me more than just the paper of being married or the event of the wedding or the hooking up or any of that physical stuff. It's like walking down the street with her and my dog. That matters, not wanting her to go by herself matters. Like all these things matter. It's wild, man.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I met James when I was 38.
Nice.
And 38. Let me think.
Uh-oh.
What? Hold on.
How old are you now?
I'm 44.
There
So it's
you go.
2017. So
There you go.
30. I was 38. Yes, 38. And it's one of the things where like I'm not gonna say love at first sight. But I knew because I had just had so many flings, relationships, whatever previously.
Yep.
And I said, I'm 38. I know what I want. I know what I don't want. So that when we met, I said, I want this. I want him.
Yeah.
And so very quickly, and I wish I had that wisdom when I was 24 rather than 38. But it's just one of those things where, you have. I like my 40s.
Yeah.
Because I have the life experience and I have the testicular fortitude. I like to say,
which we need more of that phrasing back into the game. Thank you for bringing that back up.
Yes, testicular fortitude. So, but I agree with you that it has been a welcome new chapter because we are growing and evolving together.
And so much more than you can do on your own. It's so weird. I never thought of that. And now we're about to have this baby, and there's edges that I know, especially wanting to be a speaker and out there and speaking to crowds and talking to different people. There's an edge that I know needs to be rounded off a little bit, and she's helping me do that. Just the relationship of being with her is helping me do that.
A lot of people have told me that my edge has softened.
Yes, and they can now
I've become less angry.
They can actually listen to your point of view from a different. You're like, you're not just yelling at me. You're actually talking to me. You're like, okay.
Before we met, I was very good with my CrossFit friends. There was the brunch Alex drinking game where we went out, and I would either, if I corrected somebody or insulted somebody, everybody at the table had to take a drink.
Okay, I'm surprised my friends didn't do that. Wow. Okay, it seems like we're very similar in that way.
But that is the Alex drinking game. That is the thing of the past because I've softened. I'm less cutting. But it was fun.
I'm still direct, but I'm not as cutting. We find a way, and she's helped me with that, and so that's why people believe like my mom, best friend, and her go, you're probably gonna have a girl just because you need it. I'm like, yeah, gotta do that, but. My godson's thinking I'm going to have a boy, so we'll see. Either way, maybe in the comments, toss out what do you think going to have, a boy or girl?
Well, we've been through a lot. We've meandered through a lot of topics. Yeah. Is there anything that you want to cover? Is there anything that you want to tell our audience directly about things coming up?
Okay, so what do we have coming up? Actually, December 4th, we just locked in the date for our organization, Hollywood for Freedom. This is our 3rd year, and it'll be our 3rd annual Mingle and Jingle. We'll be at Flame International Restaurant starting at 7. We'll put all that stuff out. Love for you and James to come. It's going to be a fun night. We're going to have musical guests. We're going to hopefully be featuring some Hollywood personalities and do fundraising events like silent auctions, this, that, and the other. So that's one of the biggest things we're planning moving forward. We want you. The other side of it is get involved. I always want people get involved. Whatever your skill set is, use that. If it's knitting, use that to knit, or organize a group of girls that are going to teach them knitting. And so now they get to hear your stories and develop a skill that was passed down. If it's, organizing for a campaign, do that. But it doesn't matter what you do. This time is now. We do not want to look up and you don't want to think, man, I could have. Just whatever it is, even if it's just phone call, get involved in your neighborhood and do what you can because it is desperately needed.
I agree, and I also want to remind our audience, people who are watching, You need to get registered to vote if you haven't already.
Yes.
March 5, 2024, Super Tuesday, is when we are going to the polls here. I myself have a congressional race. There are at least 16 people that I know of. And March 5, if you need to make your voice heard, because the top 2 people, hopefully one of them is me, the top 2 people will go to the general election in November. So the next election is not November 2024. The next election is March 2024. Yep. So you need to get registered. And yes, as Siaka said, you need to get involved. Any help that you can give would be great. I say that our campaign team is like a crack squad of savvy individuals, like on Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
There's somebody who picks the locks. There's somebody who does the wiring of the bomb. There's
so you're just the one that runs. You're literally the one that runs. Your Tom is Alex just running. I just watched the new one the other day. So,
did you?
So
no,
you're up there.
I honestly, I know what Joe Biden feels like, because they just kind of spin me and they say, "Here, walk here 5 steps and say this."
Well, your brain's still working though. That's the thing, and I think your dexterity is way better than Joe's, bro. Don't do that to yourself, man.
You've not seen me fall.
Okay. And the last thing about that
Yes.
registration, because the way our primaries work, if you are an independent, you will not be able to vote for Alec. You need to have. You need to. Did this switch that up?
You can. The only thing that you will not be able to vote for is so yes, it's a jungle primary or an open primary in California. The only thing you won't be able to vote for is if there's a Democratic primary,
yes,
versus a Republican primary. You cannot vote for the presidents, but everything south of that.
There you go.
Yeah, everything south of that you can.
Okay, good. Because I don't want you to. I know a lot of times we lose a whole group of people because if they're independent and they wanted to vote for, like, if it was just like the Republican primary, want to vote for someone in there, you need that. They couldn't do that. So want to make sure.
This is why with California's open primary, again, I know that I'm not going to get the 10% super duper conservative people. I'm not going to get the 10% really woke liberal people. I'm going to get that 80% of people in the middle who feel abandoned by the two-party extreme system and are standing in the middle of the road and saying, hey, what about me? So whether you are a moderate Republican, a moderate Democrat, independent, we want you in the fold, and we stand for constitutional rights.
Right.
And I think everybody's a closet Republican because everybody believes in the Constitution.
Yeah, they just don't know it yet. They just don't know it yet. Ask yourself, my bad, that face that you may have caught on camera was because this cat just walked in the room, and I was like, oh, cat. In an amazing way. People miss it. I had a friend of mine say, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but he was like, well, I don't say a conservative. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, and one of my partners in my sketch comedy group, I'm like, dude, we've been doing this for 2 years. Like, you are. I go, well, do you believe in First Amendment? Yeah. Do you believe in gun rights? Yeah. Do you believe in limited government? Yeah. Do you believe you should be able to design your own fate and have more money in your pocket? Yeah. It's like the only thing that you're about is the pro-choice. 4 out of 5. Guess what? You're a conservative. So get over the wording of it. That's what they did really well. Get over the taste in your mouth and just you embrace, you can lean in, and then actually you can have those conversations to break through some of what can be seen as old way of seeing things because you're there.
Right.
They don't have the people there. You'll never be able to get your point across. Show up.
And it's simply a matter of open lines of communication.
Yep.
So thank you again for listening to Enough Talk with Alex Balekian and my guest, Siaka Massaquoi. Please subscribe and share. Share it with your friends, share it with your enemies and your frenemies. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you again soon.
Nice.